The cube. 6 sides, 54 faces, 43 quintillion unique combinations, 7,000 lines of code to solve in Python, 3,400 scholarly articles, citations, a children's toy. We're at this school because we're compelled by these sorts of problems, by these sorts of puzzles. There's an interface. It's obvious but not intuitive. It has affordances that constrain and shape the way in which we use it, and yet there are seemingly an infinite amount of combinations and sequences to solve it. It's a complex system that must be decomposed in order to solve. It's a problem that has many faces and yet only one solution. And yet it's unwieldy, it's chaotic, and maybe even intimidating. But when you hold it in your hand, it demands to be solved. It asks to be played with. And so you proceed. You start to figure out how the systems work together. You start to see how the faces interact and how the different pieces align themselves. And you start to see the allies among them and the enemies. For example, the centers, they never move. The edges, they move all the time. And the corners really care about the direction within which they're oriented. And as you begin to solve, you make these little victories for yourself. You say, I can build just a little cross, maybe, and I can get them to line up. And you think, okay, well, I've gotten this far. How much farther do I need to go? At what point can I consider this thing solved? At what point do I call it a day and give up on this? At what point do you realize that talking while you're doing this is really, really hard? And then you make these little things. You make the cross work. And then you go to the layer. And that's when you become a cuber. And it's at this point that you start to say, well, I figured out part of it, and yet it's still not complete. Or, I've gotten this far, maybe I've gotten a layer, but it's not perfect. Do I move on? Do I go back? Do I ask for help? Do I just keep trying to solve it? Do I keep changing the algorithms that I learn? Do I realize that some of the awkward silences are actually much more awkward for me than they are for you right now? Which is true. It's sort of like putting together a set of Legos. But these are the problems that we face, because you get to a certain point in this and you say, well, I've sort of got a piece of it working here, but everything that I've built up towards at this point, I'm going to have to destroy it in order to move on, to continue. And then you get to a place like this where you say, I've got the edges, and I've got some of the corners, and some of it makes sense, but they're not all in the right spots. And everything I was doing up until this point is completely useless as well. So now I'm using different algorithms. Algorithms upon algorithms. This is why I told somebody this particular demonstration can take anywhere between 5 and 20 minutes. So I hope that they're all comfortable in their seats. But this is also the point when you realize that some of these pieces that your brain actually needs to turn off. That it becomes about getting yourself on autopilot. Because you've already got the power. You've already got the solutions in your hands, and you're working so fast that you don't even see the patterns that you're making anymore. And you can just see the algorithms as they take shape. I only did this to a soundtrack today, so I thought it would be too boring otherwise. And you get to this point in the problem where you say, it's close. I'm not standing in the spotlight. It's close. And I've got these two pieces left. And there's nothing inherently earth-shattering about getting 6 cubes to line up, or 6 faces of plastic to align themselves. And you realize it really is just a children's toy. There's no real life lesson here. Yet, you have to break the machine in order to really solve it. And you get to that point where you say, I have solved it. In my mind, I've already done it. And even though it's not really that important for the grand scheme of things, you realize that all along, it was never about